Welcome to a stenography-focused demo using Elixir, Phoenix, and LiveView. We're going to follow the same journey that Chris McCord took us on in his Build a Real-Time Twitter Clone in 15 minutes with LiveView and Phoenix 1.5 demo. That's on the front page of the Phoenix Framework website. However, we'll be using Phoenix 1.6 and we will take quite a fair bit longer than 15 minutes since we'll be doing more code longhand. We'll also be doing the building using a stenographic keyboard, the Georgi here, and Plover, an open source stenography engine. So stenography isn't not just useful in courtrooms, but can be used for any kind of text entry, even during software development in your text editor, including modal ones like Vim, the terminal, your browser, and even controlling your computer. Okay, so let's get started building with steno. We'll move over to the terminal. And we'll say that today that we're going to write a Twitter-style timeline clone from scratch using Phoenix LiveView. My goal is to show you just how great LiveView is at building interactive applications. And we're not going to have to write any JavaScript at all to make it happen. And the amount of data that we write on the wire at the end is going to be more efficient than the best single-page app you could write by hand. If that sounds crazy or you're skeptical, stick with me, and I'm sure at the end that I'll have you convinced. So I tend to do all of my coding in a terminal, so I will leverage a program called Tmux to allow me to use my editor and server in the same terminal window. Okay, so to create an application, we can run the mix Phoenix where are we here? Mix Phoenix new command, and we'll call the application chirp, and we'll pass in the --live flag to get the LiveView dependencies, and we'll say yes to installing our dependencies. Okay, it looks like our dependencies have been fetched and compiled. So let's cd into the chirp directory and then do what these instructions here tell us. And we'll create our database using the mix ecto create command, ecto being the Elixir database library that Phoenix applications use. And it looks here that we've got a warning about the gettext compiler no longer being required in our mix.exs project file, I should say. That's going to be a little bit annoying to see every time we run database operations, and we won't be needing anything related to internationalization in this project anyway, which is what gettext handles. So let's quickly fix that. We'll open up our mix.exx file. That's just down the bottom here, and on this line here we can see that in our project dependencies, in our compilers line here, it's bringing in the standard mix compilers as well as this gettext compiler as well. So what we want to do is just get rid of that and save that away. And let's now go back and reset our database. So we can do that with using the mix ecto reset command, and the warning is gone. Great. And just before we move on, let's quickly initialize a Git repository so that we can track our work. So we'll go git init, and we'll say git add everything, and then git command message initial commit. There we go. Great. Okay, so to get started building, Phoenix includes a mix Phoenix gen. Oh, where are we? A gen mix Phoenix gen or gen. There we go. Gen live command, and this bootstraps a CRUD LiveView, which lets us hit the ground running. So to build our Twitter style timeline feature, let's build a timeline. So we'll say timeline. and the resource that we want it to persist is a post. So we'll say, right, persist a post, and the plural of that is going to be the database table, so that will be posts. And let's say that a post should have some fields like username and body, and a couple of integer fields like likes count, and that should be integer, and also reposts count. Reposts count, and that should be an integer field as well. Okay, and this generated a handful of files, a couple of live views, a couple of templates, a migration file, and so on. And it told us that we need to copy these live routes to our router. So we'll go ahead and do that to make these web reachable. So I'll just go up here, highlight that, go and then yank them. And we'll go back to the app and we'll look for our router. There we go. And from here we'll find our browser pipeline. So that looks, whoops, there we go. This is our browser pipeline, which serves browser requests. And we'll just paste that in. And we'll save that and get the formatting to automatically adjust itself for us. Okay, so we'll see how these routes work in just a moment, but first we actually need to run our migrations to actually create the posts database table. We can do that with the mix ecto migration migrate mix ecto migrate command. Now with everything in place, we can go and run our server. I am going to open up a new Tmux window there, and I will run the mix Phoenix server command. And that looks like it has started correctly. Let's go over to our web browser. And we'll open up a new window, and we'll go to local host, and that's going to be 4000. There we go. Oh, actually, it should be to posts and posts. There we go. Okay, fantastic. So we're ready to go here. So we have our tabular list of posts. It's not showing anything yet because we don't have any posts. But if we click on new post, we can see a modal here with the form fields that we passed in at the command line. But right away, we know that we have a bit of work to do. We'll need to add validations for body, which also needs to be a text area rather than a text field. And also likes count and repost count should not be user editable. So let's go ahead and add some validations to get started. If we go to our form HTML template, let's get back into the application, and we'll look for form component. Form component template. Yep, that looks about right. Let's see where exactly that is in the file tree. So here we go. It's at live, post live, and then form component.html.ex. And so this is where we're rendering that form that we just saw. We know right away that most of these are not user editable fields, so we'll go ahead and get rid of them, and we'll just delete. There we go. Save that away. And while we're at it, we can go to this the text input here, and we'll just change that word there to be area. Change it to a text area, save that away. Okay, great. So let's go back to the browser and see what's changed. Cool. So this is looking a little bit more like a Twitter modal. So now we need to go back to our application and write some validations. And we can do that in the timeline post module. So let's go and have a look for that. Fuzzy find and go post, timeline post module. There we go. And that, you can find that up here in libchirp timeline post. And so here we can see Elixir's Ecto database library and how it's mapping the database table to an Elixir structure. So we know right away here that the likes count should really have a default here of 0, and then same thing really for repost count. And then for the username, we don't have any users, so for now we'll just say that, there we go, default. We'll just say that, everything is a string that contains Chris McCord's name. We'll do v in that word there. And we'll just lowercase that. Okay, cool. And then a little bit further down, so here we can see Ecto's change set abstraction, which is a way to build up a data structure to track changes that we want to apply to the database. And as far as fields are concerned, here the only fields that we want to have allowed to be cast as user input is, well, the only one that we want is the body. So what we'll do is we'll remove this, and we'll delete to the end of the bracket here. And as far as fields that we want to have required, it's pretty much the same. We're going to make sure that a post is not valid without a body. So let's just I don't know, we'll like change in this brackets in here, and we'll just manually put in body again, and we'll save that away. And as well as these validations that we got that were generated by default, we can also add our own validations. So like I want to validate the say the length of a length of the body. So we'll do validate length. And I don't need this change set arguments because I'm piping it through, and I want to validate the not the bode but the body, not to be a specific length, but I want it to have a minimum length of 10 characters and a max length of 250 characters. I'm not going to care too much about the type of the way that we count them, nor the error message that it gives. And yeah, so these amounts here, or this validation, will mirror Twitter enough to get us where we want to be. So now that I've saved that, let's go back over to the browser, and if I refresh that, and I start typing in here. I say new post, and I'm immediately getting validations. And if I remove all of that and leave it blank, it says it can't be blank. So what's happening here? And we're not shipping anything down to the client or converting any rules to JavaScript. What's happening is Phoenix LiveView establishes a WebSocket connection over this page. And in the same way as many client-side frameworks like React, anytime our state changes on our view or in our component, our template's going to get re-rendered and the browser DOM is going to be patched. It's just in our case, we're running this paradigm on the server and sending those minimal DOM references, DOM patches, I should say, over the wire via WebSockets, effectively giving us client-side validations. So here we can say, okay, I'm going to make a new post and say my new post, and we'll save that away. Great. And we can see instantaneously this shows up. And that was so fast because we have live navigation. We use browser push state over that WebSocket connection. So if I go and click a new post here again, you can see up in the address bar of the browser that it's gone. It goes to posts /new. And it's doing that over WebSocket, so we don't have to do the whole HTTP handshake over and over to reload everything over HTTP. So let's escape out of that. And so we have live navigation happening, we've got real-time events, but our interface here leaves a lot to be desired. So instead of this tabular list of data, let's enhance this to be a little more proud about our social media timeline here. And we can do that in the index template. We'll move back over to our terminal and let's do a search for index here. And this is the post live index template here. Yeah, there we go. Get up to the top there, and so this is you can see that this is where are we here? Let's just show where that is here. So under live post live index. That is not what I want to do, but what I do want to do here is I want to change the title here from listing post to timeline. Right, let's try that again. I want to change in this tag. There we go. Timeline and timeline. There we go. Okay. So we have the logic below our heading here for whether we show that modal or not, and then down a little bit further here we have our table that is rendering our list, our tabular list of posts, and then you can sort of see up here. Oh, where are we? There. So we're just doing a for comprehension, saying that for post in posts, just render a specific table row. And so let's make this a little bit fancier. We're not going to write any new features, but we're going to take this markup and essentially rewrite it. So what we'll do is we'll go and delete this table. So we'll go delete that, and then we'll go and delete these lines inside there, delete this, and we'll indent this code a bit, and we'll change this word to be div, and we'll do the same here as well. Div, there we go. Save that. Okay, so we're still going to go through our posts, but instead of rendering all of that markup in line here in the template, what we're going to do is use a live component. So this is something that Phoenix provides to compartmentalize. In this case, what it means to render a post. So we'll call this component chirpweb.postlive.post component. Let's move that back, and we'll pass in the post ID as the ID, and we'll add in we'll add in we'll pass along the post along as the state for each of these components. We will do that via an assign value, and this is going to be post. And what we want here is to interpolate that value in, and we'll call that post there. Okay, let's just make that indentation a little bit nicer. Okay, so Now that we've saved this, live reload should have kicked in, and we'll go back to the browser and we can see here that yeah, the application's blown up. It said that that post component is not available, which makes sense because we just defined it, or we just made a reference to it without defining it. So we'll need to go into the post live directory and create this new post component file. So let's go and do that. Under post live, we'll add in a file and we'll call it post component, and that will be .ex. Okay, and so here's where I can say so def module. And we'll call it so chirpweb.postlive.postComponent, and I can use use Phoenix to pull in all the code that I need for a Phoenix live component. And then down below here is where I can co-locate a template like the index.html template that we saw before. But LiveView also allows me to define a render function, here. This is where I can embed markup directly next to my code, which can be nice for smaller templates or bigger ones like we're going to write soon enough. So let's go ahead and we'll create a dressed up version of that code that we just deleted before to render a specific post. There won't be any new features. We're just going to go through and render the likes count, the body, the username with a grid row and column just to make it look a little bit prettier. So let's get to work. So first thing we'll do is we'll create a div I should say here, and that ID needs to be an interpolated value, and then within that we're going to put a string that is going to say that so this is going to be unique to each of the posts. So we'll do post dash, and then interplate plate. There we go, and we'll interpolate the post.id in there so that div ID has its own unique value. And we'll give this a class of post. All right, so first thing we want to do is we're going to have two rows for a post. We'll have, so first row here is going to contain the post avatar and body. So let's do the div for the avatar first. I don't need an ID, but we'll put a class of column, and then column dash 10 as well, and also a avatar. There we go. Class of post avatar that we're going to use later in our styles. I'm not going to need anything within that div tag, so but this will. But next to the avatar, we want to have the username and the body. So that's not what I want to do. Let's now go on to a new div, no ID, but this is also going to be class with a class of column, but this is going to contain 90, and this is going to be the post body. And inside the post body here, we're going to put a strong tag, render this in bold, and this is going to show the username. We're going to interpolate that with some embedded elixir that's going to reference the post dot username. Yep, that looks good. And then underneath the username, we want to put the post.body, which we're going to grab from some embedded elixir here as well. So we'll go post.body. Cool. All right. so now that's the first row. Let's go and do the second row, which is going to contain some post buttons. So here as well, we'll do a div, no ID needed, but that class is going to be row, just like we had before. And now let's put in the likes count. So that will be another div, no ID, but this will be a class of column, just like before. So column, and then also we'll give it a class of post button. So in Chris's original demo, he used Font Awesome fonts for the icons, I believe. I don't want to use them. I just want to. I didn't want to bring in JavaScript to this particular demo, so I've got some cheat snippets here that will bring in some SVG code that will render the icons for me. So I'm going to go likes count SVG, and then below that, or I should say next to the SVG for likes, I'm going to take the embedded Elixir and then say, all right, give me the post dot likes count. Okay, great. Then below that, I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but for reposts. So let's do another div here. No ID needed, but this is also going to be a column. This is also, and it will be a post button. And in here, I'll say that I want the reposts count SVG. That's done that there for me, and I'll put the post dot reposts count value just next to that icon as well. Okay, cool. So that's the first two buttons, and now to put in the post control buttons. So that will, of course, be another div, same pattern, similar to what you've seen before, class name of column and also of post button. And in here, we're going to put in the edit post icon, and we're going to have that actually link out here to the edit action for posts. So in order to do that, we're going to say where are we? Live patch. And we're not going to need to put any text in here, but we want to have our live patch function go off to the to not the roast, but the post index path path, and we want it to go to the edit action there, and the parameter that we want to send along with it is the post.id, and we're not going to worry about any of these other keywords after that. And then within this particular live patch link here, we're going to use the edit post SVG snippet to put that in there. Great, so that's the edit post button, and then finally we're going to put in a link, and this link here is going to be to the delete post action. So we're going to do some LiveView annotations to this particular tag here. We're going to learn a little bit more about. We're going to look a little bit more into them in detail later on, but essentially what I want to have happen here is I want when this gets clicked, I want to send off a message called delete. Delete, and then when it's also clicked, or when it gets clicked and that message gets sent off, I also want to send off a value, and we're going to say that the value ID that we want to send off is going to be that of the post.id. And inside of here, I'm going to do the delete post SVG icon. Okay, we'll learn more about those Phoenix values in just a moment. But for now, we have done the template. But just doing the template is not enough. We need to create some styles to go with this new markup. So let's go and do that now. We'll look for the CSS, the application CSS file here. And we want to do an import statement, and in here we will do /chirp.css. We'll encapsulate that code into a new file that we'll create, and that will be inside of this asset CSS directory here. So let's go and add that in. That's going to be CSS and chirp.css. Great. Okay, let's create some new styles here. So first thing that we want to do is we want a class-based style for a post, and here we want a border. And for the border, we want the style, sorry, the width, I should say, to be one pixel, and we want the style to be solid. And for the color, we'll use an RGBA function here, and we'll say we want 0 red, 0 green, 0 blue, but we want 0.1 alpha. And we also want to give post some padding. Well, that wasn't right at all. Padding. And so for padding, we want some vertical padding, and we're going to say 15 pixels. And we also want some horizontal padding, which is going to be 30 pixels. And we don't care about any of the rest of this. Okay, fantastic. So that's a post. Let's do the styling for the post avatar. And what we want here is just something very simple, a background of light gray. Yep, there we go. That looks good. And final class is for post button. And here we want a not marge, but margin top. And the value that we want in here is 15 pixels. And we want to align the text. So we go text align, and we want to have that aligned to the center. Okay, cool. So we'll save that away, and let's go back to the browser and see if it has updated. And it has. Cool. So this is looking a little bit more like a social timeline, but looks are not enough in this case. Where they need to be real time, and this is not real time yet, because if I oops, where are we here? If I load, let's move this back over here, and right, there we go. Right. So I want to now create a open up a new window, and we'll move that to the right. No, it doesn't seem to want to move to the right. Okay. And I'll open up localhost 4,000 I should say, but oops, I did the wrong. There we go. Localhost localhost 4,000/posts. Great. Okay, so what should happen here is that if I decide to post something on the right, and let's see. So if I put in, this should show up right? And unfortunately, it doesn't. I'll have to, refresh the tabs or refresh the tabs in the windows for them to show up. This manual process, it's not really great. It's not great for a social media timeline. So let's make this real time and see how easy Phoenix allows us to do this with Phoenix PubSub. And it's just going to take a few lines to make it happen. So we can go into the timeline context module. Let's go back to our terminal. We'll go back to timeline context module. Great. Okay, so these are the CRUD actions that Phoenix generated to get us started. So we can see that we've got a list posts function here, and then we've got a couple of functions like get post here, which gets an individual post. We have a create post to create a post, and then update post. These two here are ones that are responsible for writing to the database. And so here's what we can say. All right. All we need to do here is to broadcast to the world that a post is created or updated. So we want to, there we go. So let's write a function and pipe the result of this database write into a broadcast function. Prints, there we go. And we'll broadcast an event that will call post created. So I'll go post created. Great. And likewise for update, let's just copy this line and we'll move down below here, and we'll just paste that in, and we'll say that instead of the message being post created, we'll call it post updated. Great. And then all we need to do is to go and define that function. So let's move to the bottom of the file here, and we'll say that we want to create a new function, new private function there. So we'll do def p. And we'll call it broadcast. So we'll say that we need to, the first thing that we want to do with broadcast, because we're receiving the result of a database write, we need to handle the database writes failing, because it could fail for any reason. And that comes into us via a tuple. So it will be a tuple, a error tuple. And then that will contain the reason for the error in there. We don't necessarily care about the reason itself, but we do want to return it. So, oops, no. Error. No. Right, there we go. Okay, finally got that. Forgot the brief for error. Okay, and then the second argument that we're going to get within broadcast is that event name that we specified, that post updated or created. And so what we want to do in case of an error is just to return that error. Okay. Great. I'll save that. I'll format the code for us nicely, and so yeah. So we'll just maintain the call contract by returning that error back. And so likewise for the success case. So we'll do another def p, we'll call that broadcast, and for the success case, we're going to be receiving an OK tuple with the post in there, and with the event. So the OK, this there's a situation where the database write occurred, we can go and return it to the caller as it is, so the return OK post. So that's all well and good to maintain that contract. But before we do that, we can broadcast over Phoenix PubSub. So we can say broadcast. We can say phoenix.pubsub.broadcast. chirp.pubsub, since that's our PubSub server, and we can say that the topic is going to be some global posts timeline, and the payload that we pass through is going to contain a tuple. With it will the inside it will contain the event name and also the post, and we don't need to worry about specifying the dispatcher. There's already a sensible default for that. And yeah, that is it for broadcast. Then all we need to do is allow our users to subscribe to our events that we're broadcasting. So we can define that as another function. So we'll do def. This is going to be a public function, so we'll get rid of that p, and we'll do subscribe, and that's going to take no arguments. And it is here that we can call Phoenix phoenix.pubsub.subscribe to our PubSub server, and it can subscribe to that same posts topic, and we're not going to care about that metadata that we get with the API there. And whoops, well, let's get rid of that. That was a mistake. I'll save that away. And that's it. So a handful of lines of code for subscribe and broadcast. And then to pick these up, I can go into my LiveView, in this case the index LiveView, and subscribe to these events. So let's open that up, the index LiveView. And so up the top here, we can see here that we have this mount function, and this is what gets called from LiveViews when they're mounted on the page to be rendered. So before we go and fetch the posts to list them and sort of give the socket posts value, its default value of that list of posts, we want to see if there is an established WebSocket connection or not, and then if so, call that function that we wrote, timeline.subscribe. So we'll go if connected, we want to do that specific that function there. So we'll do timeline.subscribe. And there we go. And we don't have an else function, so we'll get rid of that. We'll save that away. And so now we'll receive those messages with the payload containing the event name and post. And now we just have to handle them in another callback. So we'll move to the bottom of this file here. And we'll go maybe just here. Elixir messages arrive in a callback called handle info. So handle info. And so we know that since we're subscribed, we'll receive this handle info callback. We expect to receive the payload we referenced in the timeline module. So it'll be that tuple. Where are we here? So it'll be that tuple containing a post created or post updated message. So we'll just do the post created one here for now, and that will come through along with the post itself, and then we always get the socket as the socket state as the last argument from a LiveView. And we'll return no reply with the socket, as we do not need to send a response back to the timeline module that originally sent the message. But what we need to do here, though, similar to React and other client-side libraries, is to update the state in the socket. So if our state changes, our template gets re-rendered and the browser is going to update. So let's go and update the socket. So we'll say, OK, we'll update the socket state. Let's go socket equals, and we'll say update. And so that will take in the socket, and we want to update the post. So we're going to take we're going to update the posts, I should say. So what we're going to do is we'll take the existing posts. That didn't quite work. Let's do pren there, and we'll. Okay, cool. So we'll take the existing post that we get back up from this function, and we will prepend the post that we received in the handle info callback there. That post in the arguments, we'll prepend that to the current list of posts that are in the socket. So that's going to be list prepend, and it'll be post gets prepended to the list of posts, and that should be it. So if the model works and we receive these broadcasts and we change our state, then the browser should just update. So let's go back to Chrome here, and let's see if all this works. We'll go and just quickly refresh all of the browser tabs, and let's post something new. So we'll go. We'll say hello, hello from the right, and there we go. As we can see, it instantaneously, this shows up on the left-hand side. And that's going to work over any load balance cluster since Phoenix PubSub is distributed and it doesn't require any extra dependencies. So this is off to a great start, but we can already see that our ordering here is incorrect. In fact, if I go and refresh this page, or sort of refresh all of them, all the tabs, then the post order flips to the right order. So let's fix that. We'll go back into the index LiveView file. So back over to the template, and so up above here, where are we? Up above here, this line here is basically initializing the posts in the socket to this function list posts. That's defined down the bottom here, and it basically calls out to timeline.listPosts function. So that is not currently giving us what we want. So let's hop into that function and rewrite it. So we'll go timeline. And where is it? We'll just go to the top of the page. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we can see by default, Phoenix is just saying return all the posts in no particular order. So what we want to do is write an ecto query. No, that's not what I want to do. Okay, in Word, and then take that. Okay, let's write that. Let's write that query. Okay, so we'll write, say, for P or from P in post. So from all of the posts, let's go and order that by descending post ID. So order by here takes a list, and we want to pass in descending. Whoops, the descending there. We don't care about nulls at this point, so we're going to put it as descending by p.id. Great. And so, this is the ecto query DSL. This is going to prevent SQL injections and all that nice jazz. So we'll go back to the app. Let's just refresh all the things. There we go. And so we're in our correct order. On the right hand side, no, let's go switch windows. On the right hand side, let's create another new post, and we'll go another new post, and cool. And it shows up just like that in the right order. So fantastic. This is looking great, but we haven't yet implemented that edit feature, because we know that we're receiving edits coming over the wire for updates as well. So let's go ahead and make sure that we can receive a post update. So we'll move back into terminal, and we'll get back into our index LiveView. It's going to be very similar to the original handle info clause that we created here. We're actually to the point where I'm just going to copy and paste this for all intents and purposes, but we're going to change this this method here to instead be updated, and I think that is probably it. So just do the same thing when the post updated message is received. So I could go through all of the posts in here, and I could find the post with this payload posts ID and rewrite the list. But we can actually apply an optimization in this case, because there's no reason for us to hold all of these posts in memory on the server and re-render them all just to change one. So let's move up to that mount function again. And we're going to do a quick little refactor before we put in that optimization in. We're going to do this reassigning of the socket in a separate line. So I'm just going to go socket equals assign socket this, and then go to the end. Okay, that looks fine, and then here, oops, and I want to change till there, and that's going to be the socket. Okay, great. So that's the first little refactor that I wanted to do before I put in the Phoenix collection optimization. So this allows us to say that some of these assigns are going to be temporary, and I don't need to hold onto them or track them after I'm done rendering. So we can say, okay, post assign. Anytime it's dealt with, it's going to be tracked, and then we're going to throw it away and reset it to an empty list after we re-render. So let's do temporary assigns. Temporary assigns. There we go. And we want to target the posts here, and then the reset value is going to be an empty list. And then the only other side of this is to go back to the index template. So where are we here? We want to go to index template for post live, and we want to annotate the DOM container here. Oops, there we go. Annotate that DOM container to say that that Phoenix update. Oh, that's not quite right, is it? Phoenix update. There we go. Okay, yep, Phoenix update equals prepend. Equals prend. No. Oh, right, there we go. And it looks like I screwed something up a little bit there. we'll bracket there. And, oh, actually, oh, no, this is, right, I need to do that snippet all over again. Let's try that again. So here, this needs to be Phoenix update, and that needs to go away. Okay, right. Print. There we go. Right, that is correct. Okay, so when we patch the DOM on any update, instead of replacing all of the children, only prepend new children. And this allows us to efficiently handle the collection on the server, over the wire, and on the client. So if we save that, and so that's been saved there, yep, and we go back to the browser. And let's just refresh them all again there, just in case. And let's go and see what happens when we if we go and edit that hello from the right post, and let's see what happens on the left-hand side. So we'll go and press H there. Okay, I'll have a look there, and we'll go control, yep, get to the end there, and we'll go prepend and updated. And instantly on the left, it just updates. And the really cool thing here is that if we look at the data on the wire that made this happen, that made this happen, it's very tiny. So we'll just open up DevTools here. We can have a look and see like what data came through by enabling LiveSocket debug on the client here. So LiveSocket, yep, LiveSocket debug, enable debug. Yep, that was what I was looking for. And prints. Cool. Okay, so this just enables debug information. Let's go and back to the other window there, and we'll edit this again, and we'll select all. We'll delete this, and we'll say how much data. Okay, so we can see the diff that went across the wire here. If we just open that up. And yeah, so the amount of data that we wrote on the wire in its entirety ends up being an almost keyless payload with literally just the value that we can surgically stitch into the DOM here. We didn't send down the username or the counts. We sent down nothing other than a tiny component update, and the browser had all the information it needed to stitch that together in the DOM. And this just comes out of the programming model. No more JSON serializers, no more esoteric encoding formats. You just get this for free. So let's close out our tools there. Okay, cool. So this is looking super good, but we need to implement likes and reposts to close our feature set out. So let's see how we go about managing those interactions. So if we go to our post component, back to the terminal, and let's go our post component. There it is. Okay, so we can have our client server interaction annotated in our markup, similar to what you saw there with the prepend. What we want is when we click click on the like or repost count, we want to send a message to the server. So what I want to do is I'll highlight the entirety of this SVG file here, and so I can annotate that. Well, yeah. So what I want to do is create a link. where are we here? So link, great. And we don't need any text here. This is just going to go to good to nowhere. But what I want to do is send a like event to the server. So I want to say here that Phoenix click is going to send a like message off to the LiveView, and I want to target this to myself. Phoenix target. I want that first one there. Target this to myself. There we go. And yep, that should do it for that. So the reason why I want to target to myself is because since this is being rendered inside of a LiveView, we can actually also send events to our parent. So rather than the event being handled in the parent, we want to handle it in this component file here. So we're going to do exactly the same thing for reposts. So let's go down and I should say, and we'll just highlight all of this and tab that, create a new link, have that have no text, link to nowhere in particular, and similarly we will go Phoenix click, and that is going to send a message that we want it to be repost. And similarly, we're going to go Phoenix target. I want that. And this is also going to be to myself. Myself. Great. Okay. So now that I have added in some Phoenix-based annotations to those links, I need to handle them in a callback. So let's go to the bottom of this file here and do exactly that. So as opposed to internal Elixir events, which get handled in a handle info callback that we saw before, we handle client events in a callback called handle event. Where are we here? Handle event. Okay, so I expect to see in this case a like event come through, and it's going to have no payload. So I'm just going to say, right, I'm going to ignore those parameters that are coming through. And I receive a socket with the component state as the last argument for handle event every time. And here, instead of changing the component state, I know that the system is going to broadcast these updates, which gets picked up by a parent, which then re-renders the component template. So I can just say here, like no reply, and return my state unchanged. But before that, I want to call into the system and perform some side effects. So let's say that we're going to write a function in the chirp.timeline module. Yes, in the timeline module, and we can say we'll call it just let's see. So we'll go timeline dot, and we'll call it like ink likes, and we'll go parens. And okay, so now that we've got that, or at least a reference to it, what we want to do is pull the post out of the socket. So we can do that by saying socket.signs.post, and then that should be it, I think. So yeah, we just want to basically delegate out or incrementing the likes to a function that we will create in the timeline, and we want to do a similar thing for reposts as well. So we'll just go and copy that, and instead it'll be repost, repost, and the function that we will call, we won't call it inc likes. We'll just say this should be inc reposts as well. Okay, so we can save that, jump into the timeline, and then go and write that function. So we'll go back into our timeline, and let's write that in. We'll sort of stick it down the bottom, perhaps, maybe here, and we'll go def, and we'll say that we'll go inc likes, not that inc. Oh, yeah, there we go. Inc likes, and we can pattern match on the post struct that is going to come through. So it will be a struct. Oops, a struct for a post, and we can grab the ID out. And here we want to perform an atomic database write, because if we go through the normal update process, we could have a race conditions here. So what we'll do is we'll say, so from post, and we'll say, okay, so from P in post, where, oops, that's not what I want to do. I'll undo that. And where an expression, and we'll say we want it to be where the p, the post dot id is equal to the ID that we passed in, and we want to select. We want to select. There we go. We want to select the post that we want to write against and return that. So it'll just be select P. Okay. And then what we want to do is pipe that post that we receive. There we go. We want to pipe that post into repo.updateAll. So we'll go update all, and not going to require that queryable there because that's going to be brought in. And I can tell it that we want to do an increment, and the field that we want to increment is the likes count, and we want to increment that to 1, or sorry, increment it by 1, I should say. Okay, and so this is going to then return inside of a tuple up here. So let's do a tuple. That's going to return the number of records that were affected by this operation. So that would be 1. And it's going to return the set of records that were affected for this update. So that's going to come back in a list that will just have the one post. So we can extract, we can pattern match on that and extract it out, and we can then go that it will then equal this query, the result of this query. So we've plucked out that post from the list of results, and then I can. Then what can I do with it? I can broadcast out to the world. So broadcast. Use that function that we've defined here. Broadcast out to the world that it was updated. So I can say that I can pass in an OK post. So that will be a tuple OK. Pass in that OK post along with the message or the event passed in. So in this case, it will be our post updated. I think, yeah, post updated. Okay, cool. and that should be it for our atomic write. And it'll be the same, pretty much the same story for reposts. So I'm going to go and just grab this, copy it, and paste this again, and we'll just change this to change word to reposts. And we'll do exactly the same thing, except the field that we want to change till there is going to be the reposts count. Great, I think that should probably be it, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, we'll go back to the browser. And yeah, let's refresh everything. All right. So if the model works, we should be able to click this, and it looks like it's working. Fantastic. Look at that. This is all just happening. No extra RESTful routes to define, no controllers, no serializers. And the payload on the wire is even more impressive than before. So if we go and we'll open that up again in Developer Tools. Okay, let's check out the data that we wrote on the wire to update the repost count. I'll quickly just go over to this, just like send over, all right, that repost there, and then here we can see that it is literally just some integer keys. And the repost count value. So literally to just go and surgically stitch in. So no keys on the payload. We didn't have to send the username, the body, or anything. Okay, so now that our app is finished, let's go back to the terminal here, and we'll put it to bed by checking it all into Git, and we'll say that we have finished the app. So I hope that this convinces you that LiveView is an incredibly compelling option to write highly interactive, highly efficient applications without having to write JavaScript. And hopefully this demo has also been able to demonstrate that you can use Steno, even during software development, to build cool apps like this. So thanks very much, and good luck on your own Steno journey.